Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Story number 1. Finding the line between medic and necromancer, written by writer Unblocked. The various murmuring voices around me had become one sound that filled the auditorium. As I looked around to see just who and what had come to watch, I chuckled a little. Back home on Earth, there had been a time when people went to watch court trials. It was one of the very few forms of entertainment back then. The time of court battles being a spectator sport had come and gone, however. And yet, here I was. The building was indistinguishable from a stadium where sports could be played. I wouldn't have been surprised to learn people had sold tickets to this. Humans are always very good for a show. 5 bodies appeared atop the podium in front of me. The swarming sound of voices quickly dwindled as different appendages were raised. "There will be silence in the hall." The command was quickly obeyed. None of the creatures seemed to have spoken. I assumed there was one that didn't have a mouth as I knew it. Its psychic or telepathic projections had been sent through the translator. "Accusing party declare the case for this court and counsel's appearance. The human known as Marcus Wayne is accused of necromancy by way of reviving the corpse of fellow human Todd Malcolm." My eyes rolled reflexively as I heard the word necromancy for the nth time this week. The tall purple thing to my right had kept its composure, but there were clear signs of its hostility. "How do you plead, Marcus?" "Not guilty." It took a lot of willpower to not add obviously to the end of my statement. There was another round of murmuring, which was quickly shut down by another wave of raised appendages. "Very well, accuser. Proceed." "Thank you, counsel." The tall purple thing stepped forward, and an image was projected above us. It depicted me leaning over a younger man, giving him CPR. "Human anatomy dictates that the heart is a crucial organ. It works to move vital fluids throughout the body. If it stops, the body dies." Its pause seemed to be for dramatic effect. Humanity might have been new to the galactic scene, but what it was saying was still common knowledge. Todd Malcolm's heart had stopped, therefore his body was dead. The fact that Marcus Wayne's actions led to the revival of another human is clear proof of necromancy. I groaned and rubbed my temples. On paper, that logic was sound, save for the fact that they were missing several pieces of information. "Human Marcus, you seem to have a defense." "Yes, counsel." I was motioned to take my own turn. I won't deny my accuser's claim that I acted to save my fellow man's life. However, I was cut short by a spark of conversations. This time, they took a moment to realize that they were being silenced. "However, the heart is not the only organ critical to human survival. Our torso is full of critical organs. If our lungs stop filtering oxygen, we can die. If our stomachs stop processing food, we can die. Declaring CPR as necromancy would, by extension, make the same claim of almost all humans' medical practices." "It is our understanding that among your critical organs, the heart is above them all," my accuser interjected, clearly trying to keep his footing. "Granted, our hearts are very important. There is, however, an even more important organ." This time I paused for effect. I'd apparently overestimated the crowd. This place of information visibly rocked the stadium. "It's called the brain. If you imagine the human body as a computer, the brain is the CPU. Todd's heart had stopped. I won't deny that. I knew, though, that I'd gotten to him quick enough, that his brain had not yet died. CPR is a means of keeping the heart and lungs working to keep the brain alive. I didn't revive him. I kept him from dying until someone better qualified and better equipped could solve the problem that almost killed him." "He was as good as dead. The natural order had decided his time had expired. Your intervention prevented that. Is that not necromancy?" "Maybe, but then you should be on trial too." "Why?" "CPR, in a way, is a very crude version of the injections your species uses in the heat of battle. Its coloring flashed to a bright green, a clear sign of anger. "We are alive and capable of making the choice to use the injectors. Todd Malcolm was in no such state." "So your entire species makes a conscious choice to defy the natural order. Isn't that worse than me violating it on another's behalf?" The place erupted into noise. I knew I'd crossed the line with the last point, but I didn't care. If this thing was going to let its professionalism fall apart, I wasn't going to keep stepping on eggshells either. "There will be silence in the hall." Several of the council's voices poured out of the translator. Apparently, they'd been unable to silence the room with a gesture alone. "Both of you will refrain from further outbursts. Is that clear?" "Yes, Council," we both responded in unison. "Good. The Council will now speak." The one in the middle, who didn't actually have a mouth to speak, stood up. "It would be noted that human science is still eons away from achieving true reanimation in any form. They are also completely incapable of etheric manipulation. If this act is deemed a form of necromancy, it is one achieved through nothing more than physical capability." I felt a gaze on me specifically. "Based on research we have done, it is a rather taxing process too, isn't it?" "Yes, Council. Considerable force is required to make the heart and lungs do anything useful." I knew I could leave it there, but I wanted to floor the audience again. They were here for a show, after all. "When learning CPR, we're told that we should try and crack the ribs with each compression. Better to be alive and injured than dead." I could feel a wave of shock spread around me like a plague. "I've even heard of rare, terrible circumstances where the one administering CPR had to do so for so long that they passed out from the exertion." They were exaggerations, but still technically the truth. The whispering picked up again, and I could barely keep myself from grinning like an idiot. "Humans try to injure each other while they save their lives. The act is so tiring, even a human can be brought down by it." "Silence!" The head of the council was clearly running out of patience. "This council has made its decision." All of them stood or rose into the air. "Marcus Wade, and by extension the entire human race, will not be found guilty of necromancy." I tuned everything out after that. I didn't really care how or why they came to the verdict. Those were concerns for people who got paid a lot more than me. I just leaned back in my chair and flashed the accuser a smug look while thanking God I didn't need to try and explain cryogenics. End of story. Story number 2. The Great Are Guns the Humans' Natural Weapons Debate. Written by everyone gay. "Hey, Dave, they're talking about you on the Culture and History channel." "What, me?" "Well, not you as you. I mean your species." "Huh. What are they saying?" "Something about natural weapons. Come and take a look." Dave and his friends he shared with a flat with walked over to the other room, where the hollow monitor they both paid good money to buy was. The show set was amphitheatric, like a galactic council hall, with a live audience seated where the council members would be. At the center of the set, on the ground level, were two opinionists discussing animatedly. "Why are we even debating?" impatiently said the Fossive, a hulking mountain of fur and muscle with 4 sharp-clawed fingers at the end of each of his thick limbs. "They are not part of their bodies, and they are not even born with them. They craft them like everyone else. Therefore their guns are not natural weapons." "Most of that is true, my dear FNAF," replied the Krekdal, who sat across him, a tall and slender reptilian with long, venomous fangs. "The point I want to make is that they're good, too good with them. While the average soldier requires several months' worth of intense training just to be able to properly aim one, humans can do better in just a dozen cycles of daily practice, as you are surely aware of. They even have units that specialize on picking off important targets from great distance. No other species can even hope to achieve such accuracy without considerable cyberware implants." I passed the palm of one of his many pseudo hands onto the old scar on his left temple for a moment. "Yes, I have, but that does not disprove any of my points. I was kindly given access to the anthropological section of their archives, and I can confirm the reasons why they are so good with guns is because aiming is ingrained into their brains. It is natural to them.
They've been throwing things since before being considered sapient, as their only means of self-defense.
Where are you trying to go with that?
The Fosser was now visibly annoyed. Let me finish. On top of what I've just said, they've developed ranged weapons far earlier in history than any other known civilization. For this, I dare claim that we might be in front of the first recorded case of naturally engineered weapons.
Preposterous! Thundered Yahav. Out of all of your absurd theories, this has to be the most foolish.
I think not. If guns weren't their natural weapons, would they have still managed to repel an invasion so early in their space age? I'll admit that it helped greatly that you Fossivs are pretty big and relatively slow-moving targets.
Oh, now you've done it, you expletive spawn of the expletive. You're for this. I'll turn your innards inside out, said Yahav as he got up from his undersized armchair.
I'd like to see you try, hissed the Krechtel, also getting up.
They really do hate each other's guts. Do they fight often? Asked Dave. They talk smack but never actually do anything. I think it might be mostly for the show, replied his friend. End of story. I just quickly want to thank the Tier 5 patrons and channel members: Alithia Barkey, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Albarden Guster, Arcadian, Lord Azrakal, and Joachim Backer.